She was first elected to the council in 1998 and has been re-elected 3 times in 2002, 2006, and again in 2010. She served as the vice mayor in 2002 and 2006, and prior to that, her public service to this community began by her serving on the Planning Commission from 1994 to 1998. No one can doubt that when Carrie laughs, it's very infectious, and you can't help but join in. But please join me in welcoming Folsom's first woman-elected mayor, Carrie Howe.
One of the former slogans of the Folsom Chamber is "In touch with our past, in charge of our future." And the city of Folsom has a long history of leading. And that's, one of the most important things to me about this community. And as the last couple of days while I was putting this together, it occurred to me, if you read the paper and you see the things that are happening in other jurisdictions throughout the country, we are one of those communities that I think others ought to try to emulate. We have been first in a number of different categories. We had the first powerhouse in the West. We had the first railroad. We still have ongoing rail activities in Folsom. We are one of the first cities in the county to be incorporated. That would be Sacramento, Folsom, Ileton, and Galt. Those of you that have been around for a while remember the Fig cities before Citrus Heights and Elk Grove and Rancho. We have a beautiful location next to a river, next to our downtown area, and we're surrounded by state parkland. What could be better? Since the 1960s, Folsom has been recognized worldwide by the famous Johnny Cash song, Folsom Prison Blues. Many of you know this, and I'm not going to talk about the bridge. But just as a joke, it's one of the things that keeps me entertained. I do a fair amount of travel in my work, and when people ask me where I'm from, I will typically just say Folsom, and wait and see what response, if any, I get, and they'll just kind of look at me. And I don't even say California. I just say Folsom. And I'll say, think about it. You know where that is, don't you? Oh, yeah, that Johnny Cash song. Ken Payne was wearing his City of Folsom jacket. Were you in Spain when that happened a couple of years ago? Yeah, he had a City of Folsom Utilities Department jacket on, and people that don't even speak English went over to him, Folsom, and gave him the thumbs up. So it's, it's pretty cool, and we are, for a relatively small community, it's kind of cool that we are recognized basically worldwide. We are also home to the new fabulous building on Iron Point that houses Cal ISO, which, as many of you know, controls the state power grid. Control is a good thing. Over the past year, we've completed a lot of important projects. We finished up the major portion of the redevelopment of the historic district. The plaza construction is ongoing. The flood control project at Folsom Dam is ongoing. And essentially, we have almost all of the construction activity, or the significant construction activity that's taking place in the region. We have had a number of new businesses or second locations that opened up in this past year. I understand the wait time at the new Chicago Fire at Palladio is about an hour and a half, and they're sending people to Sutter Street. There are worse problems to have. Panera has opened, Home Goods is open, Joann's Fabrics is open, and the much-awaited Whole Foods is open. We've gotten several vacant spaces backfilled. We now have Chez Daniel, the restaurant that's across from City Hall, and I don't know if any of you know the history of that, but he was the guy that had the soup and sandwich restaurant downtown that had lines around the block, and I think he was kind of unofficially known in downtown Sacramento as the soup Nazi. But I understand the food is absolutely fabulous, and that you have to wait a couple of weeks to get in there, so that's a good thing. We have Green Acres going into the former Circuit City site. We have Steinmart open. Yay, I love Steinmart. Almost a year ago, many of the people in this room had the pleasure of attending the opening of 3 stages at Folsom College. Who was there? That was a fabulous, fabulous event, and it was comical. During the after party, several of the cast members from a chorus line, it was the National Touring Company, came up and were telling the council members and other people that were there that it was the greatest opening night party that they'd ever been to, because I think they thought the party was actually for them, when in fact it was the community coming together. And I want to thank Andy, because Andy did double duty that night. Some of the cast members had perhaps a few too many glasses of wine that evening, and Andy ended up driving some of the cast members back to their hotel because they were having a hard time finding the bus. So, we aim to please in Folsom. And that was the culmination of the city and the community college district wisely spending the state community college district bond funds that had been raised. That was a $60 million facility that was built in the middle of a really bad economy. And it's been hugely successful. I was at an event with Dr. Scott Skillman earlier this summer. Shortly after the tickets had gone on sale, the people that had donated to the construction of the facility had the opportunity to buy tickets first. When the tickets went on sale, it was a Monday evening at midnight. They went on sale online. In the first 20 minutes, the Folsom Lake College sold $70,000 worth of tickets. In the first 24 hours, they sold $250,000 worth of tickets. So it's been very, very successful and well received. We have other theater options in Folsom. We have the Hawkins School of Dance. We have the Sutter Street Theater. And for those of you that haven't been to Sutter Street, I encourage you to get tickets to a performance there. It's a great theater that only seats 40 people, professional actors, and Mike and Connie are huge, huge friends of the chamber. So please patronize the local businesses. We have what the city staff had referred to as the Islands Project, which is over on Park Shore. Council a month ago just approved construction of 317 more residential units. That may not seem like a lot, but you have to put it in perspective. The builder is expecting to move forward with that project in the near term. In all of Sacramento County last year, there were only 1,200 building permits pulled. So for Folsom to be moving forward with 317 residential units, that's fairly significant. We have, as many of you know, we have 36 miles of trails within the city of Folsom that are extremely well used. We have the construction, and we're going to be expanding that because later this year we're going to move forward with the construction of the new trail called the Johnny Cash Trail, which is going to include a pedestrian overcrossing just below the new bridge. And this new trail, and I'm still trying to figure out why Department of Corrections approved this, but we're building a trail basically across the Folsom Prison property. So it's going to be the first time that the public has had access to see just how beautiful that land is. We have crime rates and emergency service response times, though up slightly this year. They are still the envy of the region. We have our own hospital in amazing medical services between Kaiser and Mercy. We have the best jobs housing balance in the region. We have some of the highest test scores within the region. We have, and that's elementary through high school. We are blessed to have the fastest growing community college in the state of California in Folsom Lake College. We have the Folsom High Jazz Band, which we can all be proud of. They are routinely named the best high school jazz band in the country, and in fact, in some places perhaps in the world. They've been invited to Montreux, Switzerland, to what is one of the premier jazz festivals in the world. I don't know how many times, and I'm still waiting for Kurt Gazer to ask me to help chaperone the kids on that trip, but maybe next year. We have an ever-expanding variety of shopping, entertainment, and dining options. Several years ago, I'm sure you all remember that the chamber slogan was changed to Shop Folsom First. Well, we've revised that to Eat Folsom First, Drink Folsom First, Sleep Folsom First. You can add whatever you like to do. Recreate in Folsom First. And that's very, very important. Nowadays, for those of us that have lived here for a long time, nowadays you can get whatever you need in Folsom. You can get recreational activities, you can eat whatever kind of food you want to eat, you can buy whatever you need to buy. But those of us who lived here 25 years ago remember the days when your dining options were limited to Tosh's and McDonald's, and I mean the old McDonald's, the one on East Bidwell, and that the only clothing items basically that you could buy in Folsom you purchased at Sprouse Ritz, and that ran the gamut from socks to underwear. So you didn't used to be able to get a lot in Folsom, so things have changed dramatically. We've got 2 movie theater complexes now. We have live music at a number of venues, including Sutter Street, Powerhouse Pub, and I Love This Bar will also have musical options. We've got recreational programs that are second to none, including those not only the ones offered by the city, but other private and public entities, including the Sac State Aquatic Center, though technically not in Folsom, it's right next door. And that Lake Natoma, for those of you that are not involved in rowing, that is the premier rowing venue in the entire U.S. with the notable exception of the Charles River in Boston, but we won't go there. The water is nicer at Lake Natoma than it is in the Charles River. And I want to thank Ernie in particular, now that I'm on the subject of Parks and Rec, because Ernie is the person in the city of Folsom who has devoted the most time and energy to getting our parks and recreation facilities to the stature that they are in the region. Because Ernie's involvement in that goes back to, I think it's the dinosaur age, where the first park was actually developed for dinosaur games. But I'm only teasing you, Ernie. But Ernie, as you all know, has played a huge role in the parks front. On the business front, we're also a leader. The region talks about being green. We've been in the forefront of that effort for a very, very long time. We have large solar fields at Intel, Kikkoman, GenCorp, and at Palladio. We have LEED certified buildings at Cal ISO, the Hampton Inn, and GLUMAC. Top this off with the fact that we also are home to several next-generation energy-oriented companies in Jadu, Altergy, and energy-saving companies like SynapSense. As a city, given this economy, we're not without our challenges. Property tax revenues are down due to decrease in values. However, on the good side of that, we also have the lowest foreclosure rate in the region. We have fared well in this city because we've continued to be collaborative and partner wherever possible, whether it be with private partners, public partners, local nonprofit organizations, other jurisdictions in the region. This city knows how to work together to find ways to get things done, no matter how difficult it seems to be. And it's important. That's, in my opinion, one of the best building blocks that we have here. And it's something that we should all be very proud of. We're the envy of the region, and when you're on top, you're always the target. So I challenge all of us to collectively continue to work together to get things done. When the going gets tough, the tough get going, and we are known for doing that. We have to constantly remind ourselves and our friends and neighbors that a vibrant community is one that provides both for its residents and business community, because in a study done approximately 5 years ago, it's the taxes that are generated by business, property tax, payroll tax, sales tax, and TOT taxes are the engine that drive our economy. So I want to say thank you to all of you in the business community. We couldn't have accomplished any of these things without you, so give yourselves a hand. We've all heard a lot lately about the state of the redevelopment agencies within the state of California and the state's plan to dismantle them. That is changing hourly, it seems, because it has occurred to the state of California that without that redevelopment agency funding being available, that it's really not possible to construct affordable housing. So there's a lot of changes to the legislation. There was an editorial in the Bee yesterday that discussed the fact that the legislature is now talking about pushing back the deadline for dismantling of those agencies. And in Folsom, that's significant because all of the funding that was used to do the revitalization of the historic district, that was $12 million project, our $10 million parking structure down there, that was all constructed using redevelopment agency funding. And the city had planned to move forward with some additional redevelopment along the East Bidwell Street corridor. That's kind of up in the air right now until we know completely and firmly and finally what the state is actually going to do with that funding. So we're staying on top of that, and we're using the money that is still currently available to us to complete things like the ongoing Plaza project, which is the amphitheater over behind the chamber. And we've used that funding to provide funding for a number of affordable projects that have already been built in Folsom. In the city of Folsom, we've probably actually built more affordable housing in recent years than anyone in the region. So we're hoping that that we will be able to continue to do those things, but we'll be watching that state legislation and see where we go. I already mentioned the annexation. We will be moving forward with the development of the annexation area as the economy improves, and hopefully soon. So it's no longer the SOI. Now it's just Folsom. So that's a great thing. And I want to thank Steve Miklos, who had been my partner going back many, many years before either of us actually had gray hair. in negotiating with Sacramento County in order to develop the MOU, which was ultimately approved by LAFCO in 2001, I believe it was, and another 10 years later, we got our annexation as of last evening. So I want to thank Steve for all of his work initially on that, because this goes back more than 12 years. And I want to thank Isla Collin, who was our county supervisor at the time, that was on the other side of the 2x2 along with Roger Nilo. Gail Furness DePardo, formerly of the Community Development Department. David Storer, all of the other people that have come and gone in the past, in addition to our current staff. I want to thank all of the landowners whose patience helped to get us through this. There was patience in probably thousands of hours worth of meetings. And I think that confirms my suspicion that 95630 is to Northern California what 90210 is to Southern California. I want to thank, again, still talking about the annexation, I want to thank Ken Payne, David Miller, Everett, Kerry Miller, Bruce Klein, and Nav Gill, who was the one person who worked on both sides of the negotiation of the annexation when Nav worked for the city and now works for the county. So, Roberta, if you could pass my thanks along to Nav, that would be great. As I said, we've always been a leader in the region despite our relatively small size. We're going to continue in that role as we move forward with the development of the SOI, and I want to thank Jeff and Steve for their efforts after the SOI was approved in moving through the planning process to get to the meeting that we all attended last night. So that it doesn't quite double the size of the city, but it comes pretty close, and I think that's a very good thing. And we got a lot of positive press in the paper today, and that was amazing, especially to have had a unanimous vote. On the subject of economic development, we have always tried to be ahead of the curve regarding attraction of business and retaining businesses and making sure that they're the right mix for our community. We brought Intel to Folsom in 1985. Anybody think that was a bad move? That was a great thing, and Intel continues to be one of our most significant businesses here in Folsom and great partner to the Chamber. We have more opportunities ahead of us that we need to take advantage of. We have interest expressed by a number of different parties in setting up business incubators, and we believe that moving forward with that we are likely to attract the attention of a private 4-year university to Folsom, which for the moment we're going to call Folsom University. I want to thank all of our employee groups, because without the concessions and pension reforms that our staff agreed to a year ago, the city of Folsom would be in a much more difficult situation with regard to the budget. And I believe that our staff, in agreeing to those concessions, have also shown their leadership within the region, because not all of the other jurisdictions are as lucky in dealing with their employee groups as we have been. I want to thank my colleagues on the council, city staff, and our partners in the business community for all of the contributions that have led to the ability for me and Steve and Jeff and Ernie and Andy to get elected and reelected. And without our having been elected and reelected, I wouldn't be standing here as the mayor. So, and I also want to thank Andy. Several years ago, Andy decided that the city was behind the times, and Andy obviously texts and probably has a smartphone. But he had decided that the city needed to be in the 21st century, so it was at Andy's urging that the city council meetings began to be broadcast online and that they're now available on the internet in case you missed one. And I believe in part as a result of that, the day after my colleagues were kind enough to select me as mayor, I started getting Facebook messages from high school friends and, New England and Florida, and so I called and I was talking to Candy on the phone and we were laughing. And when I told her that, I said, well, apparently it's gone nationwide. And she said, what, not internationally? And 15 minutes later, I got an email from Europe. So, all thanks to Andy. We need to continue to work with one another and with the Chamber to ensure that Folsom continues to be a great place to live, work, and conduct business. We need to support the Chamber and all of the other business organizations in town. We need to all work together to try to backfill some of the existing vacant space. We've had a lot of criticism about that. Why did we go forward with the annexation when there's empty locations in town? Well, the city council doesn't, and the city staff actually has far less control over filling those spaces than people realize. But as long as we have a vibrant business community and we have our citizens that are willing to pitch in and help us and basically patronize the businesses that are here, that makes it a heck of a lot easier on the economic development front to get people to come in and locate or relocate their businesses here in town. Tourism is also important to the city of Folsom, and I want to thank all the folks on the Tourism Bureau who have been the city's partner in increasing tourism in Folsom. The tourism group basically several years ago went out to their membership and formed what's called a BID, which is a business improvement district. And effectively what that means is the businesses that are involved in that essentially tax themselves, and then that funding is then used to promote tourism within the community. And that has been a very, very successful effort. As an example of that, last year the Folsom Film Commission, which is a subset of the Tourism Bureau, started an initiative to position Folsom as a great place for film and filmmakers. Red Barns Film, which is a locally owned and managed film company, has delivered a 10-episode primetime show called Dangerous Waters, which will be premiering in March. All of the post-production was completed in the Folsom studios, generating economic benefit in the form of jobs, retail spending, and most importantly, late-night dining for the film editors. Last year alone, and this statistic amazed me, this hotel that we were in right this moment was the location of 160 destination weddings here in Folsom. That generates a lot of dining revenue, a lot of shopping revenue, and a lot of hotel nights. And that's great for Folsom. We also served as the location for the Woz Cup last year. I don't know if any of you were down here, but when they had the Segway Parade, it's basically the Woz Cup is named after Steve Wozniak, and they play polo on Segways. Sounds really kind of weird, but it was really kind of cool to watch. And what it did was it attracted 150 people from all over the world. There were teams from Switzerland, from Barbados, from Germany, from Holland. They were from all over the place. And the people, I spent a fair amount of time with the people that had come from overseas. They loved it here. So, and to be honest, Wozniak was actually trying to get the event held in Napa, and we beat out Napa, so that's pretty, I think that's pretty good. We were home last year to the Golden West Invitational, as we are every year, the start of the California International Marathon. We had a leg of the Amgen, as you can see by this, because what's weird about this picture? No bicycles are allowed on the Rainbow Bridge, except during the Amgen. We have a number of amazing community events, and we were talking about some of this last night after the LAFCO meeting. We have the Christmas tree lighting, that's always an amazing event, and everybody loves that. And this year I was talking to a lot of the people that were down in front of the chamber, and most of the people, oddly enough, that were there were not Folsom residents. They had come here from elsewhere to see that event. So we had, I don't even know what the totals were for the holiday at the zoo with all the nighttime activities at the zoo with the Christmas lights. It's a wonderful, wonderful event. And again, it's great that we have these events not only for our residents, but to attract people to come here, see how great the community is, and hopefully leave some of their dollars behind when they leave. So we need to all work together to continue to promote those activities. We've had more success, I think, than many of the other jurisdictions in the region, and I think it's because of our ability to work together. There's more opportunities on the horizon for us, and we need to take every advantage of those. We need to work with our partners at the Chamber, with FedCorp, on efforts to attract new businesses, retain the ones that we already have, and move forward to continue to have the wonderful community that we've always had. And we need to do that in innovative ways. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the room, with the Chamber, with FedCorp, to move forward and expand our economic development opportunities. And the city will also continue our efforts that are ongoing to work with our colleagues in the region and our representatives both at the state and federal level to support legislation that's good for this community and the business community here in Folsom, and oppose that which is not. And I'm going to give you some examples of the things that we've been working on lately that affect us significantly locally. One of them are the unreasonable restrictions that were put into the wastewater plant discharge permit for regional sand. And, okay, did anybody think I was going to get all the way through this without mentioning sewage? So we're working hard on that. And everybody needs to pay very, very close attention to this state water bond and the issues related to the Delta. They are all tied basically to that wastewater permit. And it's very, very important for all of us in Northern California to pay very close attention to that legislation, because many people believe that it's really simply a water grab by Southern California, and we cannot let that happen. So we will continue those diligent efforts in working with the county, with the other agencies in the region, with our representatives both at the state capitol here in Sacramento and in Washington, D.C. I also want to thank both the city staff and the chamber staff for all of the assistance that they have provided to me in the preparation of this State of the City address. I want to thank my colleagues, Steve, Jeff, Andy, and Ernie, for all of the hard work that they do on a continuous basis on behalf of all of the people in this room and the other 70,000 people that are residents of the city of Folsom. I want to thank them for having selected me as your mayor this year, and I'm going to thank them in advance for all the help that they are going to give me over the rest of 2012. So at the end of the day, I want to thank all of you for being here today and taking time out of your day, and I'm going to remind you to support local business because it benefits us all. Anybody have any questions? Okay, then I'm done.